Bitcoin is fostering a more circular economy in the
Definitely.
broadest sense of the term. If you can wait for 10 minutes and don't hit the marshmallow, you're going to be rewarded with a second or third marshmallow. Bitcoiners are rarely shopping addicts. They're rarely fast fashion consumers. Those are the basic blocks of society. If you can't manage your waste and your water properly, you can't grow as a society. And same thing for money, really. We have always know that this is not a waste. This is a resource that you can use to fertilize your field. Mining methane, basically, can offset all Bitcoin's emission, making Bitcoin the cleanest industrial activity on the earth, probably from a CO2 perspective. They're largely unbanked, and they are super vulnerable by weak local currencies. There are some avenues to be explored here with regard to toilet manufacturing, which uses a lot of energy for drying, and likewise for toilet paper manufacturing, where drying processes are very intensive. But it's my firm belief, really, that Bitcoin is fostering a more circular economy in the broadest sense of the term. And I believe that this influence is both systemic and pervasive in many sectors. And we're yet to find all the use cases where Bitcoin is actually promoting circularity throughout the economy. And so I've prepared a presentation to present this. In terms of the systemic influence of Bitcoin, the thing is, when you have sound money, proper money, money that doesn't inflate, money that doesn't lose its purchasing power, gold used to be quite a sound money, and Bitcoin is the soundest money ever invented. When you have such a sound money, it lowers your time preference. And lowering time preference means you start curbing consumerism. So time preference is this notion that's evidenced by the marshmallow test. This little boy is looking at the marshmallow. He's wondering whether he's going to eat now or whether he's going to wait, because it's been said, look, if you can wait for 10 minutes and don't hit the marshmallow, you're going to be rewarded with a second or third marshmallow. If you know that by resisting the urge of immediate consumption, you're going to be rewarded, then naturally you are encouraged to reflect upon the opportunity costs, right? So you start comparing the benefits of consuming right now versus the benefits of saving for greater gains. And it's not theoretical, it sounds like a test in a laboratory. But when you start embracing Bitcoin, you find out the reality of this very rapidly, because Bitcoiners have realized the value of saving in a sound money which properly store their value. As opposed to fiat money, if you keep your money, if you wait in front of your dollar bill as you would wait in front of your marshmallow, you're not going to be rewarded. At the opposite, you're going to be punished. And the more you wait, the more you defer your consumption, the less you're going to be able to buy. So basically what we're saying is that with a bad money, a money which is inflated, which is debased, which loses its purchasing power, well, you're basically incentivized to consume as opposed to save. And so the Bitcoiners, they've got memes and jokes for this. So these typically are the type of funny pictures and memes that Bitcoiners are going to post on Twitters, just to show that, when you are hodling Bitcoin, when you're saving in Bitcoin, typically you're going to wait until the last moment before replacing your socks and pants. What it means is that Bitcoiners are rarely shopping addicts. They're rarely fast fashion consumers, and you rarely find them queuing to get the last iPhone. And it's a journey that most people who embrace Bitcoin are doing, is that you start saving. You stop spending for stuff, or you think twice, or you think thrice. You think much more. You think about the opportunity cost, because the opportunity cost is huge. If you're patient, you have the hope, the conviction that on the long term, beyond the volatility, beyond the short to medium term volatility of Bitcoin, its purchasing power increases, right? So you save for future and more meaningful investment. At some stage, you're going to spend your Bitcoin to buy a house or to make an investment that is much more meaningful than the kind of stuff that you would that you used to buy before, right? So in a very fundamental way, with Bitcoin, we have within society a reawakening of the notion of opportunity cost, and this is curbing consumerism, right? So that's the systemic influence of Bitcoin. I wanted also to insist on the pervasive influence that Bitcoin is going to have in promoting circularity in a wide range of sectors. And here I'm just going to take a case study. I'm taking the sector of sanitation. That's a sector that I know. I've been working in this sector for 15 years or so, and I've loved it. You know, for some reason, I didn't work in the financial sector because maybe somehow unconsciously they told me, you know, money is dirty, don't touch it. I ended up working in deep shit, you know, basically sanitation is the management of shit. But it's extremely interesting because just like money, water management, sanitation, those are the basic blocks of society. If you can't manage your waste and your water properly, you can't grow as a society. And same thing for money, really. And sanitation is also quite special in the sense that, you know, since the beginning, we know that this so-called waste, you know, the shit, the feces, the excreta, there's plenty words for it. When you don't want to say shit, you got the academic words. But we have always know that this is not a waste. This is a resource that you can use to fertilize your field, right? And so the circularity in sanitation is somehow already ingrained in the mentality of people. So I'm going to show you this a few ways in which Bitcoin can bring further circularity to the existing sanitation sector. I've taken this illustration from the Toilet Board Coalition. It's quite useful. You know, from a business perspective, if we look at this sector, we can distinguish the toilet marketplace, which is really about providing access to sanitation, and the circular sanitation marketplace, whereby businesses are providing transport, treatment, and reuse for this so-called waste, right? If we look at the toilet marketplace, those businesses are going to be developing solutions for toilet access, whether in public or private settings. So it's here. And those can be centralized and decentralized systems, depending on whether you're on a sewer system or maybe if you're using a septic tank. And this can be in rural, urban, and peri-urban settings. If you look at the circular sanitation marketplace, and if we're focusing on transport at the moment, that is at the bottom of this picture, it's really about resource collection. So it might be pit emptying, or emptying the septic tank or that sort of thing, and transportation, either by truck or by the sewer system, right? And then the next process is about treating the wastes. The emphasis now is to talk about resource recovery rather than waste management. And that's in tune with the circular economy approach, right? It's increasingly connecting with the biocycle. And in terms of wastes, now there's really processes to recover the resources from a great diversity of wastes. So consumer, industrial, and agricultural waste, toilet waste, kitchen waste, animal waste, compostable packaging. All these wastes are being treated and their recovery is attempted to different degrees. Reuse, the idea really is that the output products are sold back to local business or used on site. So I can mention a few examples. We are familiar with the notion that treated wastewater can be reused in the industry, in a cooling system, or also in forestry. Likewise, the agriculture sector is reusing nutrients, organic matter, compost, nitrogen and phosphorus derived from those treatment processes. Now you have a whole range of new stuff that are being developed. I'm not too familiar with the protein meal for pet and farm animals. I don't know too much about it, but there is of course, public, private, or industrial use of energy products, fuel, electricity, and heat, and some innovative product. I'm not going to dwell on this. So where can Bitcoin foster more circularity to the sanitation economy? So I've identified at least 3 areas where this can be the case. The first area is the energy products. And here we're talking about methane mitigation, which is really a very strong use case for harnessing the power of Bitcoin. We can mention the great work of Daniel Batten, who's been studying and really uncovering the huge potential that Bitcoin is bringing to capture methane, which is considered by the UNEP as the strongest lever to reduce climate change. So we know, at least UNEP states that methane is causing 84 more warming than CO2, and it's rising at a parabolic rate. So in his research, Daniel also indicates that there are 2 key anthropogenic sources of methane. It's the agriculture, I guess the cattle, and the landfill gas. And the landfill gas are on track to be our first methane source by 2032, right? What Daniel is also explaining is that the best way to destroy that methane is using it to generate power, right? So you can generate power with a generator and then produce electricity. But in 70% of cases, the grids cannot take that power, and using it on site is the best option. Well, the options that you have on site are e-trucks, high-performance computing, or Bitcoin mining. In his research, Batten has spotted landfills where Bitcoin mining can be deployed, and the expected results are the following. After 1 year, you can expect a reduction of 4 million tons of CO2, which is equivalent to 153 million trees planted. After 3 years, we can expect those mining activities, mining methane, basically, can offset all Bitcoin's emission, making Bitcoin the cleanest industrial activity on the earth, probably from a CO2 perspective. And by 2030, it can offset the emission of the whole Scandinavian region. So don't take my words for granted. Those QR codes will lead you to the research, the publication, the work that Daniel has done on this. But here, clearly, we have an example, a clear use case where Bitcoin can bring further circularity in the sanitation economy by basically using methane, this waste, as a super resource to mine the most precious money on Earth. The same thing can be said about agriculture. The human and the animals, like the cows, are producing methane, which can be collected and transformed into electricity. And again, Bitcoin mining will yield economic benefits for the farmers, as well as environmental benefits, as we've just mentioned. So that's the first area. The second area has got to do with sanitation entrepreneurs and financial inclusion. If you're in Africa, in many regions of the world, many districts are not going to be sewered, and a lot of the sanitation is going to rely on small businesses that are going to empty your septic tank and transport the load to the nearby treatment plant. Now, those guys are, generally very informal. They're largely unbanked, and they are super vulnerable by weak local currencies. If they use their local currency, there's no way they can save in this currency. The inflation, the loss of purchasing power in this currency is huge. So there's no way they can't really save for further investment or for proper maintenance of their trucks or expansions of their capacities. They don't really have access to financial services. So for this population of entrepreneurs, which are so critical for the well-functioning of the whole sanitation of chain of service, a Bitcoin can be a solution as a store of value. Or, with the wallets that we have now, they can also use stable coins. So that's a second use case where Bitcoin can help these people withstand financial shocks. And finally, the toilet marketplace. I think that there are some opportunities to explore with regard to heating and drying. It's important to know, for those who are not too familiar with the mining of Bitcoin, it's important to figure out that it's producing a lot of heat, which can support more profitable heating or drying solution. So you see already some Bitcoin mining paired with domestic heating, with the heating of greenhouses to grow tulips, onions, flowers, whatever, and to heat swimming pools. So not only are you heating the greenhouse or the pools as you would do otherwise, but at the same time you're doing some calculation that you're rewarded for, right? So I guess there are some avenues to be explored here with regard to toilet manufacturing, which uses a lot of energy for drying, and likewise for toilet paper manufacturing, where drying processes are very intensive, right? So that's pretty much it. I mean, just through this example, which is only partly researched, that of the methane is properly researched by Daniel Batten. That of the sanitation entrepreneur is something that I've studied personally, and there's been extensive research on this population, on their significance, and how financially excluded and vulnerable they are. So it's a critical use case, I would say. And the last one, with regard to heating and drying, is a prospect. It needs to be explored, but the sure thing is in other sectors, we already have very profitable application. So it's economically and environmentally meaningful.